Hello, welcome to Aussie Yarning, and this is episode 68. And today is the 16th of May, it's Saturday. And it's a very special day because today is my 45th wedding anniversary. Yeah, I've been married 45 years. And today I've been thinking back over some of the experiences in my marriage, and it was interesting thinking. I was remembering the day of our wedding. My husband got booked for parking in the wrong spot before he got to the church, and he was very hungover, even probably still a little drunk, while we were getting married. We honeymooned in Katoomba. My parents had a holiday home in Katoomba, so that's where we honeymooned, except that we didn't have a key to get in, so we had to break a window to get in to spend our first night together on our honeymoon. So that was an interesting evening. And it's been an interesting 45 years since. He keeps telling me you don't get that long for murder. So I'm thinking maybe if I'd murdered him sooner, I'd be out by now. But no, he's a precious man and I love him. So yeah, today is our 45th anniversary and we've just been out to dinner. We went to a Vietnamese restaurant in Maitland, which has high ravings on TripAdvisor, but I'm afraid we couldn't give it high ratings at all. So I'm not going to give it negative ratings, I just won't put anything out there on TripAdvisor. But yeah, didn't like it, and now he's out there eating something else because he's hungry. Okay, so that's what today is all about. So just to catch you up on a few things, it's been 3 weeks since I last recorded. I can't believe how quickly time goes by and it's just disappearing. I mean, this year is disappearing. And I kept thinking I was going to podcast and then something else would get in the way. I was going to do it last week and then I went down to Sydney and it just didn't happen. So here I am. What happened? Yes, it was last weekend. No. It was 2 weekends ago. I went to the bead show in Sydney. And I had been waiting for this bead show for 6 months because my understanding was that a whole heap of stores that sell beads and all the findings that go with beads would be in this big exhibition. And so I've waited and waited so that I could go down and see all these places together and choose all of the stuff I wanted for all of my beading, for my beaded stitch markers, etc. We got there and it was pouring with rain and it was lovely. Like, who was there was lovely, but there wouldn't have been more than 12, maybe 15 stall holders. And typically they're a stall holder there, so they couldn't bring all of the stuff that was in their shop. And a lot of what I was looking for was the findings that go with beads, not the beads themselves. So of course that's not what they bought. So in the end I didn't really see what I wanted. So I collected all their cards and hopefully I'll find what I'm looking for on their websites. But anyway, it was an interesting experience. I did buy some things. Yeah, I've always got to buy something. And yeah, it was interesting. So that was one thing that I did in the last 3 weeks since last recording. What else? Oh, well, the major thing that happened, just after I recorded, was that we were flooded. So for those of you overseas, you would not have heard about it at all. For those of you in Australia, you no doubt heard about the Maitland floods. And it really flooded. We had a major flood in 1955 and there was a lot of work done on the levees and surrounding areas to try and avoid that type of flooding and serious damage and loss of lives since that time. And we've had lots of bad threatened flooding since 55, and we haven't had so much damage. But for some unknown reason, this particular storm, which they said was a Category 4 of a cyclone, which we never get here in Maitland, it was major. Just woke up one day and suddenly the wind is raging and the rain is pouring down, and I'd never experienced anything like it. I've heard about the cyclones that are in Queensland and up near Cairns and things like that. I've heard about them, I've seen the pictures, but never been involved. And of course we woke up to no electricity, so our typical reaction is, oh, it'll be on soon, you know, won't take long and the electricity will get back on. Electricity didn't come back on, and because we're a totally electrical home, I couldn't even make a cup of coffee. I couldn't get my coffee, and I was getting desperate. So in the end, about 11 o'clock, I thought, I'll blow this, I'm going to drive up to McDonald's and I'm going to get coffee up there. So I set off in the car and I'm looking around and watching the cars just out here, and they're going really slow because the water was so deep that they had to go slow to go through it. And I'm thinking, gee, that's strange. But I went down this way to go to McDonald's, and I get down to a certain section, and of course it goes down low and then it goes back up again. Well, the water was just raging across this road, and I'm looking at all the cars going through it, and they're all four-wheel drives. So they're going through this raging water, and I'm thinking, oh, I don't know whether to do that or not. I just don't know. And you hear these terrible stories of people that get washed away, and in fact, one woman did get washed away the following day. 86-year-old woman had only gone out to get a bottle of milk and didn't realise how bad the water was, and it just washed her car away, and terrible. So I had fears of that type of thing happening, so I thought, no, I'm not going to take this chance. So I did a detour thinking I'll go up around the other way. So I went up this road, went to turn right, and all these electrical wires were on the road, and I thought, well, I'm not driving along there. So I turned back around, came back, went back up the way I'd come from home, went right up around the other way and started to go down, and again there was a part of the road that went down into a dip before it came up again. Never think of these things on sunny days, what the roads are like. But when it's raining, you see where the water gathers. So again, I wasn't sure about the depth, but then I saw this guy in this huge, big, flooded area, up to his knees, digging something. I have no idea what he was digging. Maybe there was a plug under there to let the water out. I don't know. But here he is digging away. And I thought, well, there's no way I'm going through that way. So I went back home again and still didn't have any coffee. So it was a bit desperate. And because we had no lights and there was no way I was going to sit and do nothing all that time. So I had my headlamp. Well, no, I didn't have it on my head. Sorry. I'm imagining that. I had my headlamp around my neck, pointing down at my knitting, and I was knitting my little heart out, waiting for the light to come back on. Well, the light didn't come back on until, I think it was very, very late that night, we finally got electricity back. But there were many, many homes in the area that didn't get electricity for nearly 2 weeks after the flooding. So I can't imagine what that was like for people. It was just beyond my comprehension. That night, when our granddaughter's partner came home, because they live with us, he was able to find the generator and set up all the extension cords and get the fridges turned back on. And we thankfully didn't lose anything in the fridges, but a lot of people did. My grandson, the grandson I talked about last podcast, he lost everything in his freezer, and because he doesn't have household insurance, he couldn't claim, but they're the things that happen. So yes, very interesting experience. Thank God it didn't go on for too long for me. Oh, and the coffee incident, about 3 hours later, my husband went out in his car And by then the waters had subsided a little bit and he was able to go to Macca's and get me a coffee, and I was so very happy. Yeah, what we'll do for coffee. So that was my experience with the flood, and that was interesting. Now, what else had happened in the last... the reason I'm going on, and this is 10.5 minutes and I'm still going on, is you'll remember in my last podcast that I had said that I've decided I'm going to spend a little bit more time just talking to you. Because I do rush and I do try to fit everything I can within 30 minutes. And so really all you do get is knitting and very little about me. And since I've been watching Nathan, and of course you're going to hear about Nathan again, I realise people do want to know about your life. And people get to know you better when you talk about your life. So I'm going to tell you about not everything, believe me, not everything, but I'm going to let you in on some things. So that's why I'm taking my time, sitting back, relaxed, going to talk to you about things. And talking about that, I'll just bring this in now. My typical problem each time I come round to the 12 months since I've had my contract with WordPress. Sorry, my brain just went dead. Yes, you sign up to WordPress for 12 months, and the first time I did it, nearly 2 years ago, would you believe that I've been podcasting? So the first time I signed up, would you believe I actually paid $300 and something. I think it was $330 to do this podcast, to have WordPress. Can't believe I did that. But I was sure the world needed to hear about me, so, it was a small investment to let the world know me. So then when we came to the anniversary, I was thinking, no, I'm not going to spend all of that money again. So I went to a lower level in WordPress, which meant for $99, I was able to upload, I think it's 15 gigabyte I can have up there, or 13 gigabyte or something I can have up there before I've got to kill off some old ones to put the new ones on. So I've been doing that for 12 months, just slowly but surely taking off the old ones and adding the new ones. But also in that time, something happened to the way I was doing my videos, that I could only do 30 minutes for a gig. Once you, whatever it is you do to your video to get it up there, it would bring it down to just under the 1 gig for 30 minutes. So anything over 30 minutes, it was too much to upload onto WordPress, because they only allow 1 gig in one upload. So for 12 months that's restricted me, and I've been able to only do 30 minutes, which has been frustrating for me, and I've had to rush. And a couple of my friends have told me that when I rush, it's not that easy to listen to what I'm saying. So I'm not going to rush. So what I've decided, because we're coming up to the next 12 months and it's due for renewal again, and it's not just 99 anymore, it's gone up to 129. And I'm thinking, I'm not going to pay that anymore. That's ridiculous. So I've decided I'm going to let go of my WordPress website when the 12 months is up, and I'm just going to upload to YouTube. Now, I've stuck with the WordPress all of this time because through WordPress you can get onto iTunes, and because I always watched my podcasts on iTunes, I figured that's how everyone did it. And I figured if you're on YouTube, then it was sort of like a hit and miss as to whether people got to see you or remembered to see you, because on iTunes it automatically loads the next episode. So that's why I stuck with it. But I realise now, after another year, lots and lots and lots of people just watch YouTube and nothing else. And given that probably the two most popular podcasts of today are on YouTube, I'm not going to say what they are because I might be wrong, but in my opinion, they're the two most popular podcasts, and they're only on YouTube, and they are having enormous success at that, I figured, well, I could just go on YouTube and not bother with iTunes, and then I don't have to worry about the time, because these other people go for an hour and a half and 2 hours, and no problem uploading it to YouTube. So that's the decision. I'm going to continue with iTunes just for a little while longer, so that those people who do only watch on iTunes can watch this and maybe the next couple to know that it's about to end, and then encourage everyone to go over to YouTube, subscribe to there, and if you subscribe, it comes up in the feed anyway. Well, for me, I always get notification in my emails to say that Nathan's uploaded the latest podcast, or Bakery Bears has uploaded theirs, whatever. So I'm presuming you won't miss out on knowing that my podcast has been uploaded. So that's the decision. And then it doesn't cost me anything. Yeah, I like that. What else? I was talking to you last episode about my Fit Club, and that I'd gotten straight back into it after my cruise. I just love going to my Fit Club. I never thought I would enjoy doing exercise. I hate exercise. I hate any form of pushing myself physically in any way. But I just love my Fit Club. And honestly, if you could see the way I work out in the Fit Club, you would be surprised. I had thought about getting someone to video one session just so I could show you, but no, you might be eating when you watch the podcast. It might make you sick. But what I did think I'd show you, I was telling you about the bag that we have to swing around everywhere. So I've just got my own bag this week, and I thought I'd show it to you so you can see what it really looks like. So this is it. There you go. That's the weird looking contraption. You can see it's 5 kilo, and you have these straps on it, so you wrap your arms around the straps, and then you wrap your arms around the handles like that, or like that, depending on what you're going to do with it. Swing it around or whatever. Yeah, and for 45 minutes I throw this thing around. So I've just had my latest update on weighing in and measuring, and while it's not exactly what I'd like, I really want to lose it all straight away. I have lost, excuse me, according to the scales, I've lost 2 kilo, but I've put on 1 kilo of muscle, so I've really lost 3 kilo. So that's not bad going. I know it's not enormous. This is a lifestyle that I've chosen, so it's not going to happen quickly, but it is going to happen. I think I've lost 2.5 centimetres generally over my body. And I'm not sure if I told you, the first assessment that I did, I think I have mentioned this, that they test your metabolic age, and they said my metabolic age was 75. That was very depressing. I'm 65. I didn't want to have a metabolic age of 75. Well, the good news is I'm down to 71. So I've come down 4 years. So it's amazing what doing exercise can do for your body. Plus, my diet is dramatically changed. So I don't know if I've mentioned that before, but part of this whole process is that you're on shakes, and the shakes, all the products that we use are from Herbalife. So, it's a bit like Amway and all those other things. It's a distribution type thing. You sign up, and the more you sell, the cheaper you get your product, etc., etc. I normally don't like those types of things, but I was convinced that the product was good, and I'm totally satisfied on it. I have 2 shakes a day and a normal meal at night, And the thing I didn't realise about good exercise and good diet was the need for enormous amounts of protein, so I've increased my protein dramatically. I mean, I've got to eat every 2 hours, so it's really strange. Any other diet, you starve yourself, and yeah, but this, it's amazing. So I'm really satisfied. I'm going to continue doing this for as long. I'm thinking, I wonder how old I can get before I have to stop. Let's see if I can get to 85 and still be doing this. Don't know if I'll be podcasting when I'm 85, but who knows? I've never stuck to anything for very long, so the fact that I'm still podcasting almost 2 years later is, yeah, it shows I must be maturing or something, I think. I don't know. Alright, so enough of the blabber. Although the blabber was probably interesting. I've told you... oh no, the other good news that happened this week. Remember I told you, well, for those of you who have been following me for a while, 12 months ago, because it was in the beginning of winter last year, my granddaughter, who's living with me, and her partner, so Cassandra and James, both decided they wanted to learn to knit. So I taught them how to knit. Cassandra already knew. I had taught her when she was a little girl, but she'd never cottoned onto it, never been interested. So she was reunited with the idea of knitting, and I taught James how to knit. And so for, I don't know, a good month or more, we would sit at the table and knit away after dinner. It was really lovely, really enjoyed that. But of course it wore off, and they haven't touched their knitting since. They said they'd come back to it next winter, and we're in winter, so I'm not sure. Anyway, I forget what day it was now, but my other grandson and another grandson, Luke, rang me and said, "Are you home?" And I said, "Yes." He said, "We're coming around now." I said, "Well, I am going out shortly. Why are you coming around?" He said, "We want to learn how to knit." I said, "Why?" He said, "Well, we were just cleaning up and we found some knitting needles and we decided we both wanted to learn to knit." Now, I'd also taught Luke, when he was very much younger, how to knit. So he wasn't really a stranger to the idea of doing it. And evidently his partner, Lauren, had been taught by her grandmother, and she used to sit and knit a lot with her grandmother. But her mother doesn't knit, so she had no one to turn to. So they came to me. So they turned up with these 2 wooden knitting needles, no yarn, and said, "Well, you know, surely you've got some yarn." I said, "Yeah, I think I've got a bit." Opened the cupboard door, and Luke said, "You could open a spotlight, I think." So we found some yarn for them. They decided typically they wanted to knit a scarf. Why anyone wants to knit a scarf when they learn knitting is beyond me. It's so boring, but anyway. So Lauren couldn't remember how to cast on. So I cast on for her, and off she went knitting. And I cast on for Luke, reunited him with the idea of it. They packed it in a project bag, and off they went. They were on his motorbike, and so he shoved the project bag up under his jumper. So I said, "You better not have an accident or you might get stabbed with knitting needles." So I haven't heard yet how they're going with their scarves, but I can just see them both sitting up in bed together, knitting away on their scarves. I wish I could get a photo of it. So that was a bit of excitement for a little grandma that keeps hoping that someone's going to follow in her footsteps. Talking of that, and again I'm off the subject, but I've got plenty of time, haven't I, so I can get off the subject. We had Knitters Guild again on Friday, and one of our members brought along with her granddaughter, and I think that Emma, look, she couldn't be much more than 20, maybe 22, but, well, maybe 22. She's in uni, so maybe she's 22. And her grandmother had said, oh, she loves knitting, and she entered some things in the show, and she won some prizes, and, you know, I'm thinking, you know, that's nice for this young girl to have done that. Well, she came along on Friday, and when we were doing our show and tell, she produced this scarf that she's working on, about this wide, would you believe, double knitting. If you're watching, Nathan, double knitting. She designed the design herself. She did it on the computer somehow. And it's of just a garden of flowers. It's just black and white. And this display of flowers in a garden. And she's done about, if you can see where my hands are, I don't know if I'm doing this right, about that much already. It's going to be a very long scarf. I was just amazed. Here's me struggling with my little Remember cow, and she's doing this massive thing. And someone said to her, so how did you learn double knitting? Oh, I just looked it up on YouTube. There were some videos there. I learned how to do it, designed my own pattern, off I went. And she's just amazing. She showed us a tea cozy that she had made, and it was a 3-tier cake with all fruit all the way around the tiers. It's just beautiful. I said to her, you need to meet Nathan, and Nathan needs to meet you. So I'll have to get her onto Nathan's podcast. So that was another aside. Sorry about that. These are all the asides you could have had if I wasn't battling for time. And see, it's 26 minutes. I'd have had to stop by now, and I haven't shown you any knitting yet, but I don't have to stop, so that's nice. Alright, so FOs, and I have got a lot. Would you believe I have done so many things in the last 3 weeks? It's unbelievable. It's almost beyond my comprehension. But the first one I've got to show you is the Remember cowl. And remember, I was halfway to finishing it when I showed it to you last time. And I had said to you that I didn't know whether I was going to get it finished for Anzac Day because it was a week away and I was only halfway. And at that stage, it was taking me 45 minutes to do a round. And I just, because remember I said I was supposed to do 4.5 rounds a day to get it done. And at 45 minutes a round, I wasn't having enough time to get all that done. But as it worked out, as you get closer up the top, it wasn't taking as long. In fact, I was getting a round done in 20 minutes. Maybe because I persevered with it longer as well, but also because in here there's so many changes all the way along, whereas up here, you know, it was just plain knitting and just a couple that had to be dealt with. So I got it finished on Anzac Day. Probably, I don't know, in the morning, lunchtime, I can't remember now, but I got it finished on Anzac Day. So I was so pleased with myself that I had persevered. I had struggled through all the problems. Yes, there's still a lot of mistakes in it, and those mistakes are staying. As I mentioned in the last podcast, to remember those who have suffered enormously from war. There were some mistakes I fixed because I couldn't cope with the idea of them still being there. But anyway, I learned a lot. And I love it. I'll probably never wear it because it's double knitting. And I live in Australia. Even though it's cold now, it is not cold enough for something like this. So what I thought I'm going to do is put it up on my wall. Up there with all of my other knitting. It's going to get maybe right up here so you can see it above me when I'm podcasting. So that, for those of you who know nothing about this, who have just joined me, this is the Remember cowl by Nathan Taylor, who is Sockmatician on Ravelry, and his podcast is Sockmatician. And he's adorable, so if you haven't watched him yet, then go and watch him. Yeah, so it's the Remember cowl. It is double knitting. He did design the pattern for the commemorations of the first, I think it was the First World, well, it must have been, mustn't it? It was 100 years ago. Yeah, so that was his offering to the commemorations, and so this is my offering to the commemorations, and I was very pleased that I finished it. So, having done that, I did say in my last podcast that when I finished that I was going to finish those socks, the 6-ply socks that I had started. Didn't happen. I frogged them because I didn't like them. They were too big. I hadn't done the gauge properly. Well, I'd done the gauge exactly as I was taught, but they were far too big on my foot, so I thought, no, they're coming undone. So they're waiting to be done again. But I did also finish, I can't remember now the name of this, but it's called vertical colour work. The idea being, if you have a look inside, normally with colour work you would have the colours going all the way around on the inside. But this, you only have the colour going up as the pattern progresses. So it's an interesting way of doing it, and I can't for the life of me think of the name of the woman who taught it, but it's a craftsy class, and I think it's called Vertical Knitting, and excellent lessons. Really interesting to do, and I'm very pleased that I've finished it. I did cut mine short because, like, look, I don't have a big neck, so I don't need anything too long. So I did cut the pattern short, but I really enjoyed knitting it. So that one's finished and off the needles. Then, now we'll go to this one first. Just after I finished the Remember Cow, I was watching a back episode of Bakery Bears where they were talking about a cow pattern that they had put out to raise funds for cancer research. As most of you who have watched Bakery Bears would know, that Dan had suffered with cancer and gone through all of the frightful treatments that they do. Treatments often can kill you before the cancer kills you, but thankfully Dan has come through and I trust is well again. But they decided they wanted to help raise money for the research for cancer. So they've released a pattern called Handbrake, and they've committed to give all the income for that pattern to cancer research. So at the point that I had heard this, I think they said they were up to £680. Is that, yeah, I'm sure that's what it, look, I could be wrong. I'm often wrong. I don't know. They had raised a lot of money, okay? The pattern is only £1. I think it's £1.15 or something, I don't know, 15 pennies. Believe me, I don't know about these things. I just know I thought it was a good idea. I wanted to support it, and I thought the pattern looked like something I could do. So straight away, I bought the pattern, and I wanted to find some yarn to do it in. And I went searching through my stash, and very quickly I came across some yarn that I had been given from the stash of a friend of mine who died in January of this year from cancer. And just after she died, her husband had brought all of her yarny stuff to our Stitch and Bitch meeting, and we were able to distribute it amongst all of us. And so I had received, I think, a half a dozen balls of this really gorgeous cream coloured, very rich 8-ply yarn. And so when I found that, I thought this is ideal as a memory to Julie, and also as a fundraiser for cancer research. So I bought the pattern, I knit the cow, and I finished it. Now, I don't think, yes, there you are, you can see the pattern there. So really, really easy knit. Very simple pattern, knits up very quickly. I love the yarn. It's really, it didn't feel that soft in the ball, but it really is soft and it's very nice on the skin. So again, it's a bit big for me. Look at my neck. It's a bit big for me, but that's all right. I just felt I wanted to knit it for the reason that it was being done. So thanks to Kay and Dan for putting that out and for raising all that money. And yeah, I named mine Julie, in memory of Julie. So the last thing that I have that's a finished, I can't believe I've got so many finished objects. Never have I done that. This is the cowl that I started on my cruise. It's the pattern that was put out by Chris Bilsma, who was our team leader. And she designed this cowl specifically for our cruise. It's called the Down Under. I'm sure that's the name, Down Under cowl. And I think it's up for sale now. I haven't had a look, but I think she would have put it up for sale once she got home from the cruise. So it's got 4 different patterns depicting different features of Australia and New Zealand. And so finally I was able to finish it, which I'm really pleased about. It's gorgeous yarn. This is pure silk, which I bought at Bendigo show last year, and it really is lovely. I love the colour, and I'm sure it's going to suit a whole heap of things that I wear. I might just leave it on now. Okay, so that's my finished objects. Now, I did make a confession last podcast. For those of you who haven't been following me for all of the time that I've been podcasting, I used to have a segment called Confessions of a Polygamist, because I am renowned for having unfinished objects. So what I was doing was bringing out one unfinished object each podcast and confessing to the fact that I'd started this thing and hadn't finished it. As a result, I got lots and lots of encouragement to get those things finished. So they went back into the cupboard and they sat there and they waited for another 12 months or more. And so when I got back from my cruise, I decided to clean everything out, clean out all my stash, all the stuff that I knew I just wasn't going to use anymore. So got rid of that, took it up to the guild meeting and distributed amongst everybody there. They all thought it was wonderful. And I took out all of my unfinished objects. I was very hard on myself, and if I felt that I couldn't possibly sit down and knit that thing right now, then it was going to get frogged, because I knew I wasn't going to knit it ever again. So it was silly sitting in the cupboard. It was taking up all my needles. I had no needles left in my cases because they were all on unfinished objects. So I frogged quite a few items. I still had quite a few. So as I mentioned last time, I had 25. Now it was actually 27 because I'd forgotten about 2. So yes, there were 25 unfinished objects. Well, the extra 2 I'm not going to count because they're elsewhere and there's a reason for them. Yeah, so I had to try and find a way of bringing those 25 down. Some of which was this and this and this. It wasn't this because I hadn't started that yet. But the socks that I've just frogged and quite a few other things. So once I got down to 25, then I thought, no, I've still got to do something drastic about that. So I went through it a second time, and there were some more things that I pulled undone. Now, you remember I was talking about my the boxy jumper that I had knitted. I was up to doing the sleeves. It was all finished apart from the sleeves, but I just couldn't bring myself to finish it. And I think I'd mentioned that one of my friends who had finished hers and was wearing it had decided she really didn't like it. So she was going to frog hers and wash the yarn and knit it up to something else again. She does that a lot. I'm amazed at someone who can do that. So anyway, with her feeling the same way about the boxy, I felt, look, I really don't want to put any more hours into that, even though it was gorgeous yarn. It was Fiona's yarn from a Down Under, well, from Solar Flare Fibres is the name of her yarn. A Down Under yarn is her podcast. A Down Under yarn. Not that she's recording at the moment, but that's the name of her podcast. So it was gorgeous yarn, just loved it. So in the end I decided I'd frog it, I'll wash the yarn, I'll reskein it, and I'll find another project to make with it. So that one went. That was a biggie. And that was hard to undo. Very hard. So I did that with a lot of things. And I've now gotten my list down to 14 unfinished objects. So I'm really pleased. I was just, earlier tonight, before we went out to dinner, I was watching Nathan's latest podcast, which I'll talk about again in a minute. And he was saying how, like, he's got 4 things on the needles, and that's enough for him. And I'm thinking, oh my goodness, he'd never cope with what I've got. But anyway, that's me, I can't help it. So, let me show you some of the things that I am working on now, just to get rid of. Now, one of them that had been sitting in the cupboard for forever was a giraffe that I had decided to knit for my daughter-in-law for her 40th birthday. On Monday she turns 42, so she didn't get it for her 40th. So I was thinking about it the other day and thought, gee, I wonder if I've got time to finish it off before Monday. So this is the giraffe. That's one of the pictures. There's another picture here. Of course, this is a Susan B. Anderson pattern. There he is. Isn't he gorgeous? He's just the cutest little giraffe. And I don't know if you can see there, there's 2 of them in the little trailer behind the kids' bike. But he's gorgeous. So I'd only gotten him up to about here. And that's where he sat for nearly 2 years. So I thought, okay, I've got to work hard on this. So I finally got the body finished. So there he is. He's going to be closer to the proper colour than the blue one. He's going to have black stripes, black spots. So there's his body. And this is the hardest part, because if you've done any toys, you know that you've got to do it smaller needles than you would normally do on a particular size yarn. And you've got to do it tight so that all the fibres inside don't come out. And it's really hard on your hands, particularly when you're going in the round and you're decreasing or increasing. It really is hard on the hands. So that was most of the reason why I put it away. I just didn't enjoy doing it. And I was reminded of it very quickly when I finished him, or finished this, because my hands were aching. It hurt so much. Even then I thought, gee, I don't think I can finish this. But anyway, yesterday morning I persevered and I thought, no, I'll cast on the head, and I managed. So there's his head. It goes that way. That's his nose there. So that'll go on his body like that. So that part's done. And once I got those 2 done, I knew that I was going okay with it. So I've been working on the legs, and here are his legs. I've got one more leg to do. And it was interesting. I was looking at, this was the first one I did. This is the 3rd one I did. Can you see a difference? Just slightly bigger, and it's slightly gone wrong down here. That's the way he's going to be. So I've got 3 legs done, 1 more to go, and then I've got his ears, his horns, his tail, and his mane. So I should be able to finish those tomorrow. And I've got, hopefully, till Monday night, if I don't get them done tomorrow. So it should be finished, but you won't see it because it'll be going to her on Monday night. My daughter-in-law absolutely adores giraffes. I've never seen anyone go silly over anything like she goes silly over a giraffe. So I hope that she likes this. And also, while I was on the cruise, I found the most gorgeous little necklace about this big with a mother and her baby giraffe as a necklace. So I think she'll enjoy those as well. I hope so, anyway. Alright, so that's one thing that's nearly finished, and it was on my list of unfinished items, so it's nearly finished. The next thing, now I did show you my son's blanket, John's blanket that I've been doing. I won't show it again because while I have done, 21 more squares since you last saw it, it is still all in that orangey colour, so it really doesn't look that much different, so I won't show you that one this time. Now, last year I was making 2 log cabin blankets, one for my grandson Luke and one for my grandson Jordan. And I was doing them together and realised that by doing them together it was delaying both of them. So I stopped doing Jordan's because Luke's had been started first. So I finished Luke's, and he did get it before the end of winter last year. So as soon as it got cool enough this year, I started on Jordan's. Now his was quite well done. There was a fair amount done. Mind you, it was still probably only 3/4, but it was still quite long. So I'll show you what I've done. Oh, don't tell me it's going to get all tangled just when I need it to come out nicely. So here we go. And I'm going to have to stand up to show you the extent of it. Oh, my arms aren't long enough to show it all to you. But anyway, that's giving you a fair idea of how big it is. Quite big. So, getting untangled here. It's hard when I move and have to settle down again. Alright, so since I picked it up, let me see, where was I? I was finishing the grey, so I had to get the grey finished. And so I've done all of that, and I've done all of this, I don't even know what you call this, a taupe colour, brown, I don't know, it's like a mushroom colour actually. So I've done all of that in the last 3 weeks, and naturally I'm trying my hardest to get it finished before this winter finishes. Now, just to show you what is yet to be done, this is the pattern from Kay Gardner and Anne Shane, which is the Modern Baby Blanket. I'm trying to remember there's a name for it and I can't think. No, can't think of it. Anyway, you'll all know what it is. You're probably screaming it at me at the moment. But it's on Ravelry. Just look up the Modern Baby Blanket and you will find it. So I drew up my own chart to let me know what colours I was doing and where. And as you can see, I've done all of these, all of these, all of these, all of these, and I'm in the process of doing this. And then when that's done, I have to do this. Now, in Luke's blanket, I didn't do these 2 colours. I chose the main colour, which I think was whatever this colour here was for his, and I just did it right across, and I just went until I ran out of yarn, which got me to about here. So I'm going to do the same with this one. I'm certainly not going to do the full length, but you can see what I meant, that I'd only done probably only half before I picked it up to go again, because I had to finish off along here, and then I've got to do this. So now I'm about 3/4 of the way. So working hard on that, but it has stopped this week while I'm getting the giraffe done. So once the giraffe is done, then I'll get back onto this. And in a few weeks, I think it's a few weeks, I'm going away to a knitting retreat for the weekend, so that'll be nice to have on my knees snuggled up and still knitting on it, so that'll be good if I'm still working on that. Okay, that was Jordan's blanket. Now, I did show you last podcast yarn that I had intended starting another knit night pattern. Just to remind you of the knit night scarf is this one, which we did on the cruise. Really simple pattern, very easy to knit, and I showed you this yarn, which is pure mink, very expensive. I can't remember what I paid for it, but I know it was a lot of money. Okay, so it's pure mink, absolutely gorgeous and beautiful to knit with. And what I wanted to do was knit the same pattern with beads. So I got some beads. Oh, let me show you the beads. Got the beads when I went to the bead show. And don't know. Oh, look, they're going to show to be green. These are purple beads. Believe me, they are purple. But they're not going to show you purple. They're going to pretend to be blue. Anyway, take my word for it. So I got the beads and I started knitting, and each of the little picots has a bead in it, and I'm also adding beads down here. Now I'm trying to make my own design. I've never ever made my own design before, and this is very simple. You can see that, but I'm trying as I knit to come up with a different way of doing the beads. So it's a bit of a slow process because I don't want to just keep adding beads along the edge and then not have... So I'm trying to work out something to add in here. But anyway, I'm progressing with it. It's gorgeous. Just beautiful. Beautiful yarn. So I'm really enjoying doing that. Now what I wanted to show you with my beads, a lot of you would be familiar when you're doing beadwork to have a crochet hook, and you pick up the bead with the crochet hook and you hook the stitch with the crochet hook, push the bead down onto it and then knit that bead. And that works really well. It's quite fast to do it that way, but the crochet hook has to be so tiny in order to get through the hole of the bead that often it's too small to actually grab your stitch. So it pulls this, it separates it, snags the stitch, and just makes a mess. So I discovered this other system, and it was Fiona of the Down Under Yarns who told me about this, and it's using dental floss, but not the sort of dental floss we're familiar with. It's a special type of dental floss. I think I might have talked about this once before on the podcast, but it's a good time to talk about it again. So this is what it's called. Super Floss. It's put out by Oral-B. Don't know if you can get it in other countries. I just know you can get it in Australia, and typically in most chemists. So what it is, there's several parts of it. Maybe if I pull out a clean part, it would be easier to explain it. You get, I think, 50 in a pack, so there's no way you'll run out in a hurry. And what it is, from here to here is just typical floss. So I tie a knot down this end with a bead, and that's what holds the beads on. Then from here to here is like a fluffy section, and that helps to hold the beads on so they don't fall off. And then the last little bit is a very stiff piece of, well, I want to say plastic. I don't know how else to describe it apart from a solid, stiff plastic. So that helps you pick the beads up to bead them to start with, and then when you start to put the beads onto your knitting, I bend that stiff plastic bit over. So when you're ready at the stitch that you want to put the bead on, You thread this through into the inside of the stitch, then you fold that over, you pull a bead up, pop it over onto the end, slip it down onto the stitch, and then pull this out. So easy, doesn't damage the yarn in any way at all, and all the beads are on there. So if you're out somewhere, like I can take this with me, I could even do it driving in the car and not lose any beads. Whereas you can imagine if you had beads on a saucer with a crochet hook, just would not work driving in a car, or even taking it to knitting group. So there you go, there's something that you may have learned. And the reason I decided to bring it up again was that different ones I've talked to over the last little while, and they've said, we've never heard of it, what are you talking about? And I've had to explain it to them. So I thought, okay, well, I'll share it with you lot as well. I've just noticed I'm nearly an hour, but I'm not going to worry about it. It might just take 3 different sections in iTunes for it to upload. Who cares? So that is my beaded knit night, and that pattern is on Ravelry. So that's it. That's what I'm working on at the moment. So no more to talk about there. Last podcast I was showing you my shrug, and I said if I could remember the pattern or find it, I would let you know. So I finally remembered it was called Finger Crocheting. So it's a Yarnspirations, I've written it down here, Yarnspirations pattern, and it's called Finger Crochet Shrug. So if you go onto the Yarnspirations website, I think it's their website, yep, and then just search for Finger Crochet Shrug, you'll find the pattern there. Oh, just a little bit of extra news about what's coming up for me. We're having our Knitters Guild camp in August. We have it every second year, and this year I'm helping the convener to organise all the registration. So that's another thing I've been very busy with in the last few weeks, is setting the database up and organising the different registrations and sorting them all out and everything that goes along with that. So that's going to be very exciting, and the reason I'm mentioning it now is that if you live in this area, it's going to be south of Sydney at Stanwell Tops. So if you know that area, if you live within reason of travelling to that area, then think about coming to our Knitters Guild camp, because it's going to be exciting. I went to the one 2 years ago and it was brilliant. Oh, excuse me, must be time for my bed. So yeah, the camp was brilliant, and I would encourage anybody to come. If you have been thinking you will come, register quickly, because the places are filling up and it won't be long before it's booked out, and there'll be a waiting list, so don't delay. And another thing that I wanted to highlight to you, in our last guild meeting, we had a woman from the Sydney Knitters Guild come up and show us some quilts that she'd been making and some books that she had produced as a result of the quilts. In her group, they'd always been looking for what they could learn to knit next, and she was always coming along with another different block that she was adding to the quilts that she was making. So in the end, they encouraged her to teach them a block a month, and that then gave her the idea to produce a book for a block a month. So she came up firstly with this book. Now her name is Daphne Ferguson, and this one is called Textured Sampler Knee Rug, and this one being shown on the cover is the block of the month that she taught in her Knitters Guild meetings. And there's a few more examples on the back there. So throughout the book, she just gives a different, like there's a different pattern almost each page, and all the details of how to knit them. I think there was a couple of lovely pictures in the front. There's a better picture of the one that she completed. Just beautiful. And she had a multitude of them. I don't know how she knits them so fast, but she must have had 20 quilts to show us, and they were just exquisite. So as a result of producing this book, she then went on to produce yet another one, and this one's called Squares and Stripes Forever. And this has a variety of different patterns in it, not like that are all like, they're fairly like Aran-y type blocks. This is more a variety of a whole range of different quilts, but still a gorgeous pattern book. And just recently she's produced A Taste for Lace, and this also is a gorgeous book with just pages and pages of lace patterns and examples of how to put them together. There are a few examples. You can't see very carefully there the lace part of them, but they're all lace quilts, and they're some of the ones that she brought up to show us. So there's an exquisite one there. So the reason I'm showing them to you is that they are for sale. She doesn't even know that I'm advertising them. After she left us on that day, and my friend Linda had bought, or she'd bought 2 of the books previously and then bought this one on that day, and I thought, look, these are just exquisite books, and I'm sure there's lots of people that would love to learn or extend their knowledge of knitting and produce a beautiful rug in the process. Now these are only $20 each, these books. I don't know what it costs to send them overseas, but $20 each for these books. They're beautiful. I highly recommend them to you. And I will put here how you can contact Daphne if you want to purchase them. And do me a favour and tell her, if you purchase them, that you heard about them from me talking about them on my podcast, which is encouraging to her then to know that other people are talking about her product and appreciate what she has done. And it helps us to learn the power of media as well, that I talk about something and somebody else buys it and they talk about it and somebody else, and so it goes around the world. I like that. Okay, I said I'd get back to Nathan, and now I'm back to Nathan again. You probably get sick of hearing me talk about Nathan, but I just think he's the best thing since sliced cheese, so, you know, I can't help raving on about how lovely he is. He really is. He really has the most beautiful personality and compassionate care. I don't know. I don't know how to explain it any different to that. But anyway, I was very embarrassed. I was watching his podcast tonight, and he was saying really nice things about me. And I was laughing and I was crying. So see what you do to me, Nathan? And I really appreciated the things that he said, so thank you. Yeah, it helps when we talk about each other, and people who only watch me now know about Nathan. People who only watch Nathan now know about me. I've had several people subscribe to my channel since Nathan's last podcast came out, so that was interesting. So welcome to those of you who have signed up as a result of Nathan. Yeah, so he's just a delight, and if you haven't watched him yet, go ahead and watch him. Oh, and that was the other thing I was going to bring up, was the fact that he was talking about that I had offered to send some stitch markers to him, so I couldn't come up with any ideas about, you know, stuff for boys. What do boys like that I can put on my stitch markers? So I had a revelation. It's very funny. It's a joke actually. But I've made the stitch markers and they're on their way to Nathan. So hopefully they will arrive safely and he'll be able to display them in his next podcast. And he's going to have some for prizes and some that he can keep for himself and some that he can give away as a promotion for his own podcast. So I hope he enjoys the joke because I thought it was funny. And I had fun making them. So that brings me to my shop, and it is open. Finally, it's open. And I've been working really hard this week on getting a lot of my stock finished and ready and photographed. The work, I've said this before, the workload to get a shop up and running is enormous. But anyway, it's all up. Finished it today. And so there's some new stuff there for you to go and have a look at. There's some old stuff, and I'm trying to stifle a yawn again. I've got more ideas of what I want to produce. I just need more time. But a lot of the workload I've had on my shoulders for quite some time now is over. It's all finished. I've been also working on a website for my sister, which seems to have taken forever. I'm sure it's been going on for 12 months. I've been trying to get this latest new podcast website up and functioning, and I finally did it this week. So that's another thing off my shoulders, and I'm so pleased. Yeah, so I've got time to think of all these new ideas that I've got for the shop, and of stitch markers and zipper pulls and knitting sayings. They sold out really well, so I've got to produce more of those. So if you know of a knitting saying that you'd like to have on a zipper pull or a stitch marker, let me know and I'll certainly put it on. And that brings me to another point. When I first started the shop, somebody wrote to me, messaged me, and said they were looking for a stitch marker that said "She'll be right, mate." And I hadn't even given a thought to doing that, and so that gave me the idea, and I've produced them. Now I wrote back to that woman thanking her profusely for the good idea and said I would make sure that she got some when I'd made them. But when I went back to find out who it was, I had lost that communication. So if you're watching and you're the one that told me about that created this new idea, please contact me so I can send you your free zipper pulls and stitch markers, because I've got them here ready for you. And I'm so sorry that I forgot who you were. It's just gone. I've searched everywhere. My emails, my Ravelry message, I've searched everywhere. Can't find it. And Quilt Moxie is going to update her Etsy store today. Well, tomorrow for me. Today is Saturday here. Saturday for her is tomorrow. So we were talking during the week, had a lovely talk again together. Just love talking to Ariana and sharing about our shops and the ideas that we've got and just life in general. So she said that she would have an update for this Saturday as well. So look out for Quilt Moxie, the podcast, and her Etsy store, and all the lovely things that she makes. The most gorgeous bags, just exquisite bags, and she's made some new things as well. So if you haven't watched her podcast, go along and watch that. The last one might not be for men unless you're into wearing bras, because she was teaching about how she made her bras, which was a fascinating subject, but probably not for the average guy. But no, go along and see her podcast if you haven't watched it, because she does all the craftsy classes, and then she shows the things that she's made from the craftsy classes and talks about her difficulties or the things that she discovered and the learning curves, and just makes everything sound so fascinating. And the things that she's tackled are amazing. So I'm trying to encourage her at the moment to do double knitting, and she's done, the other one that's like double knitting, but it's evidently harder, and I can't think now what it's called. Anyway, she's done it. So if you want to know what it is, go along and watch her podcasts and you'll see. And so really, I do think that that's all I've got. This is an hour and 10 minutes. I've never talked this much, and I've so enjoyed just relaxing and telling it as easily as I wanted to. So yeah, this is going to happen in the future. And so that's it for a fortnight. And until then, remember, she'll be right, mate. Bye.